I warned about a year ago there was going to be an economic collapse. I warned that the dollar was going to collapse. This hasn't happened yet, so we have more time than I thought. Nobody knows when it's going to happen. Only God knows. Or those that are involved in collapsing the dollar would know when it's going to happen. What does the collapse of the dollar even mean? Stay tuned and I'll explain it. Hi, my name is Kenda. Welcome to Lift Your Spirit. There's a lot of talk about a storm coming. Some say we're in that storm. In light of that, I want to point you to this t-shirt that's in my Etsy shop. I'll put a link in the description. So what does the collapse of the dollar mean? What does that look like? I'm going to explain what I have learned in the last year. This information comes from financial experts, and I'm also going to play a couple of clips from a couple of prophets who explain what's going to happen. But the collapse of the current money system is not probable. It's definitely going to happen. And the reason is because it's a fabrication of current Babylon, which is the cabal. God's kingdom is coming on this earth, so it can't survive. It's going to collapse. The collapse of the dollar means it will cease to be the world's reserve currency. You need only know about the BRICS nations and what they're doing to realize that that's true. And that's what's going to happen. Saudi Arabia used to have an agreement with the US that they would use only US dollars to pay for oil. They no longer have that agreement. Paper money is called fiat currency. It doesn't have any value, and the reason it doesn't have any value is because it was taken off the gold standard. That happened in 1971. And when that happened, it became just paper. The only reason people think it has any value is because we were told it does. People still have faith in paper money. They still believe it is worth something. But when they realize it isn't, it's going to collapse. I explained a lot more about all of this in this video here. I believe it's Haggai chapter 2 verse 8 that says, "The gold is mine and the silver is mine, saith the Lord." Silver and gold is God's money. Silver and gold never lose their value. It's a way to keep your money safe. Once upon a time, I did think that you had to have silver and gold. But now I believe that we could just switch over to a different financial system. There's talk of the quantum financial system. There's talk of the US Treasury note. So there's a lot of talk that we're just going to switch over to a different system. And there is actually a prophet who says that, and that's Dr. Manuel Johnson. He says there's going to be an adjustment in the financial system. If you like this video, please give me a like to let me know. It also pushes my video out there for other people to see. Thanks in advance. I really appreciate it. Here are the clips of the two prophets. The first one is Chris Reed, and the second one is the only Canadian prophet I know of. His name is Barry Wunsch. And just so you know, before I play these clips, sometimes you'll see Barry jump or shake, and he explains that as the Holy Spirit coming through him. And he says it's like a bolt of lightning that goes through his body. This is confirmed through another prophet named Donna Rigney, who I've played a couple of her clips before in my videos. She has the same thing happen to her, except she doesn't have the jumps and shakes. She says, ho, ha, sometimes. Anyway, it's pretty funny. So without further ado, here are the video clips. As always, I hope that you find this video helpful. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.
What God revealed to me, and to preface this, is by the end of the decade, the dollar system, the paper money, the fiat money system will be worth zero. But it's going to be worth less and then worthless. And when I heard that what your prophetic word was, like, wow, that's incredible, because that's exactly what I've been saying for all these years. And and God revealed to me from a biblical prophetic time point that would potentially be into the end of this decade. So Chris, go ahead, add whatever, to tell us what God, revealed to you, through prophetic, and I'm all ears.
Well, I'll just start off by saying I agree. Just an initial comment. This is one of the reasons, and I'm sure you know this far better than I, is that this is why for the last 15, 20 years, the president and the federal government have not been concerned about balancing the budget or coming up with a budget, because I think all along the globalists have been aiming for the destruction of the dollar, which is why the talks of the debt ceiling and continuously raising it without cuts in spending, it seems like that they haven't really cared. It almost seems intentional.
Yes.
And I think that that's the reality of it. I think that it is intentional. That's why they haven't cared about reining in spending. Let me just share, if I can, the $50 bill dream first. This was first shared. I shared it publicly in March of 2022. So well over a year ago, I shared it publicly for Morningstar here where I minister and on my YouTube channel. But it's March 25th, 2022. I had this dream up in a place called Moravian Falls, North Carolina. And our ministry has some property up there, and we have one of our churches up there, and I was just going up there to minister. And so while I was up there, I dreamed, and I'll just read you the dream. I saw an unknown man dressed in a black suit hold a $50 bill in his hand, and he tore the $50 bill in 3 stages. Number one, he stayed in front of me. He took the $50 bill and tore off 1/3 of the $50 bill. And when he did, random people started coming up to me and bringing me national newspapers, one right after the other, with headlines being that all that I could see on those newspapers. And I remembered them vividly. The first one that was given to me after 1/3 of it was torn off of the $50 bill said this, quote, "The dollar drops 30% in value," unquote. And there was a subtitle which read, quote, "Mideast oil strikes deal with China instead of the US," unquote. I then saw another headline given to me which said, quote, "The perfect storm," unquote, subtitled, "Inflation reaches a new high." I was handed another headline which said, quote, "Food shortage crisis as wheat and bread imports are at a stalemate," unquote. Another headline was handed to me which said something like, quote, "Riots and civil unrest as citizens demand entitlement checks," unquote. That was the only one that I couldn't remember the exact wording of, but it was very, very close to how I read it. The second stage of the dream, I saw the man dressed in black again with the $50 bill, and this time he tore it right in half. So first he tears off 1/3, and then he takes what's left of it, tears it in half. And when he did, an earthquake happened under my feet. And another person walks up, hands me a headline which read, quote, "Israeli and Palestinian 2-state solution reached," unquote. Another headline was handed to me by another person which read, quote, "Major earthquake hits the middle of the US," unquote. Then the man in black in the third stage took the rest of the $50 bill and started tearing it into smaller pieces one by one. And another person walks up and hands me another headline which read, quote, "America in pieces," unquote, subtitled, quote, "More states secede from the nation in rebellion to the federal government," unquote. I was handed another headline which said, quote, "U.S. military takes charge as uncertainty looms over the federal government," unquote. Then the man in black took out a new dollar bill. But it was interesting because this new dollar bill looked like a cell phone, like an iPhone.
Digital.
But it was a $1 bill. And I did see George Washington's face on, of course, just like, the current $1 bill, but it looked very different. And I remember looking at this $1 bill that looked like a cell phone, and somebody else came up and handed me another newspaper headline which read, quote, "New currency for a renewed nation," unquote. And then another headline was handed to me, and it was the last one, which said, quote, "Simplicity restored as Americans grow their own food again," unquote. As I told you, we also worked with a man named John Redenbow and different others and intelligence groups as we've worked with counterterrorism and all that. And one of the things that they said was that there was language in this dream that only if you were in the intelligence world you would understand. It would trigger you. So this was a very intense dream. I'll just give you my interpretation of it, a quick version of it. There are so many events that, of course, are happening in the world right now that could cause a perfect storm. And I think this dream will progress over a period of time. I don't know the exact period of time, months, years, but it looks like it's going to start in the near future. When I had this dream, none of this was in the news headlines. It really, as far as the inflation and a lot of that stuff, the food supply chain shortages that started after that. And so the word that I got was preparation, in the sense that the word preparation was going to be taking on a new meaning in the days to come. And so I know, as Paul the Apostle said, we know in part, we prophesy in part. So I don't pretend as if I have the whole. But if I bring my part and you bring your part and somebody else brings their part, then I think we can make a better piece of the full picture. And so this is just my part. I want to make that clear. The man in black, as dreams are often parabolic and metaphorical, the man in the black suit, well, when you think of that, the man in black, the first thing that comes to your mind, if you're an American, is Johnny Cash. How ironic. Yes. The man in black has the last name Cash. And of course, the $50 bill being torn in 3 stages seems to be the monetary value of the 50 United States and the devaluing of the dollar, the petrodollar. Also, what's interesting about Johnny Cash is he's the man in black, but the black horse rider in Revelation chapter 6, the black horse, pertained to economic principles. In fact, it says in Revelation 6, a measure of wheat for a penny. So in other words, the U.S. $50 bill, as I said, represents the economic condition of the U.S. So a quick summary, it seems like the bill, as it was torn in 3 stages, escalated a series of events. The tearing off of 1/3 of the bill triggered a headline of the dollar dropping 30%, which is about 1/3 in value. And this seemed to be tied to a Middle East oil deal with China.
Yeah.
And then it seems the deal seemed to hurt the dollar, which led to more economic strain, high inflation, the perfect storm, and then food shortage, supply chain issues, which, of course, a lot of people know this. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. And there's a lot of bread that comes from there. And so because of the war that's going on there, no matter how somebody feels about it, the fact is a lot of the harvest, the seed time and harvest cycles have been interrupted. So that's going to affect wheat, bread, and so on and so forth. These issues will then trigger the next headline: Americans demand assistance and welfare. And so then he tears the bill in half, which seemed to trigger or be a result of America supporting a 2-state solution of Israel and basically dividing Jerusalem in half. And it seemed like that when this happened, there was an earthquake that hit the middle of the U.S. It was like, if you're going to split my city, Jerusalem, I'm going to let, I don't know to the degree of the earthquake, but that it would hit the middle of the U.S.
I'm looking at this great big, this large screen, and it was, kind of this chart you could see, kind of like you would a financial chart, but the header above the screen was the USD, the United States dollar. And so I'm watching it, and all of a sudden I watched it do a deep dive. It dropped by about 1/3, and then it kind of leveled out a little bit, and then it dropped quite quickly by another 1/3, and then it started to kind of trickle down, a little bit after the first 2 big hits. Now, I watched in the spirit, and as this came down, there was something new that was opening up, and I watched, and it didn't take long for the dark clouds of oppression and whatnot to clear up, and bright blue sky and sunshine once again began to flood the land. I saw oppression and debt being removed off of the nation, and it was a new day, and there was a clean slate, and it was a day of freedom. The Father was turning the tables. For the day of rule of the cabal was now given a blow it could not withstand.